called millennial is the notion is that we've all, we're all so removed from the shit that we did. And not even that, maybe not even that far away. I mean, I remember going to my boss and saying, what's the plan for me? And he said, there is no plan. There's no schematic somewhere, But I just thought, as I elucidated in the book and in the note, that the idea of a 50-year-old millennial, that would just kill, don't you think?
I love it. I love the idea because it goes back to the root of what we talked about. The millennials are forcing us. They're forcing out bad leadership. And for me, I love that. Like, that's the challenge. I love it. So like the fact that ties those things together, because I'm certainly not suggesting I think like a millennial, but I'm out to service the millennial. There's no doubt about it.
So what I really don't want to do, and when I've seen all these books, and I'm going to contact a friend who writes reviews business books, so he can tell me the feel. But what I really want to do is, like, all these books about like the care and feeding of millennials. I think your point and my point is different. It's that it's not the care of feeding them. It's not accommodating them. It's letting them lead us.
Yeah, I think it's twofold. Yes. Well, I don't even know if I'm trying to say it's twofold. Other than for me, like at the end of the day, it's the leadership wake up call.
Oh, nice.
Like it really is, because guess what? The millennials aren't going to put up with it. So now you can't bully your way out of a tough relationship. You got to lead yourself out of a way of a tough relationship. Nice. I think it's like, it's the wake-up call. It's the leadership wake-up call. Guess what? They're calling your shit. And it's okay. It doesn't make you a bad leader. It just means you have to learn.
Well, and this segues so beautifully, again, as I said in the note, everything that you preach is what they want.
Yeah, and I take no special credit to being leading edge or cutting edge or smarter than anyone, other than I'm just listening. Like, it's pretty easy to listen to what someone wants if you're hearing it from everyone, and then go figure out how to deliver that. Where leadership's stuck right now is they're trying to keep the old world of, I don't want your opinion, I'm going to lead the way I lead. And that reservoir, that bucket full of millennials, that sounds strange, that volume is overtaking the leadership requests now. And so I'm just listening to it.
Well, the other thing I mentioned, as I mentioned and maybe putting it around, the idea that we all behave like millennials, or all have behaved like, and of course I gave you a shot about saying fire me. Do you see any resonance in that? Because really, that allows us to be somewhat vulnerable in the book and say, look, I've done shit like this, that if I was 25 years old, people would go, oh, typical millennial.
Yeah. I'm the millennial that came a few years early. Like from my perspective, one of my driving motivators is I've been lucky enough to have this style of leadership, the way I believe the workforce wants to be led, but I also haven't had it, and I've craved it, and it's hurt. It's hurt when I've worked for people who didn't get it and didn't lead me that way. Because I wanted their approval. I wanted to learn from them. I wanted their knowledge. But I couldn't get it. So I feel like I've actually been on that side of the leadership equation and felt that frustration. Unlike some of the millennials who have the courage to speak up, I didn't have the courage to speak up.
Okay. So here's a couple of things I'd like to do with you. I'd like you to put that in words, that what we just talked about. I'd like you to actually to canoodle that around and put that into words. I'd like you to look to find me 3 or 4 times in your life where, again, if you had behaved like, okay, that's one. The one I just gave is one. The second one is I'd like you to have 2 or 3 times, 4 or 5 times in your life where if you've been 25, they would have rolled their eyes and said typical millennial. And so what I want to do that is maybe we can play some games with it. Was it Mark or was it a millennial type of thing? Whatever we're going to do on that. And so that's 2. And the third one is I'd like you to think of 5 examples in your life where you wished you had received those things, and 5 scenarios. We won't use names, obviously, but scenarios where you encountered those things. How's that sound?
I like it.
Okay. So you get to hit the keyboard now, buddy.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I'll round up the usual suspects in terms of the numbers and stuff like that. I'll continue my research in terms of whether another book like this exists. But I'm thrilled that you're up for it, because I think that this will be a great talking point. We have to make sure that no one looks at it as just a book about millennials, even though we call it whatever you want to call it, the 45 to 50-year-old millennial. Because so in the subtitle, we'll say how these are the new rules of the game for everybody, right? Not just millennials. We don't want to restrict and Gen X's are in there too. So
yeah, because at the end of the day, it's not a book about millennials.
Thank you.
Like, it's a book about leadership, proper leadership. That the connection to the millennial is they're the first generation of workforce who's going to stand up, and if they don't get what they need, they're going to leave, and they're going to chase it somewhere else. And I feel like previous generations didn't have the guts. Well, that's harsh. I don't mean that, I guess I was going to say courage, but
it wasn't the culture. Wasn't the culture?
Well, it wasn't the culture, and there was more fear to leave.
Yeah.
And now millennials have grown up seeing that this exists, and they expect it. And that's the connection to the millennial. Again, I don't want this to be a book about millennials. I want it to be a book about leadership. But the millennials are the wake-up call.
I just love this, Mark.
Yeah, like I can't say that enough. Like, the millennials are the wake-up call for organizations all across the world. If you didn't want to change your leadership style before, too fucking bad. You have to now.
Yeah.
Or you're going to lose.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, right?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I'm getting excited just writing this. Just taking my notes. Boy, it took us a long time to get here, eh?
I was going to say it took us a short time.
Yeah, I suppose. This is our 4th or 5th interview. So, yeah, I suppose it's just about right. But it's such I know I always go back to this, but I love the process of unfolding it, because this is what we're talking about now is substantially different than what we were talking about last week, and so.
Yeah, and that, I guess that's what worries me. Are we going to miss the ultimate unfold, or is this right? Do we feel right about where we're at?
Well, I think we do. To me, we're at the 3/4 point. Is that we can see the end in sight now. To me, and if we're wrong, Mark, we'll find out. But to me, we're focused towards the finish line, and we can gear all our conversations, all our research towards that point. So I hope, and if we're wrong, we'll know it.
Yeah, I like the concept of the 50-year-old millennial. I really do. By the way, for the record, I'm 48 still. Okay.
Yeah, so I figured we'd call it 50. I know you're 48, but I figured we'd call it 50 because by the time this thing gets out, it's a catchy name. And even if you're talking about 4 years from now, you can say, oh, by the way, I'm 52. So, but the 50-year-old millennial has a nice ring to it.
I like it. It's like the 40-year-old virgin, but the 50-year-old millennial.
Yeah, is it ever nice? Yeah.
Now I'm trying to put a business version of Steve Carell together here in my head.
Awesome. What I'll do is I'll cobble together some stuff, and we're at the point now where I'll invoice you. I'll invoice you the second invoice, because now, as I say, we're sort of 2/3 of the way through the process.
Yep.
And then the third invoice will come with you accepting the draft. Is that okay?
Well, I'm not paying the third invoice till I'm a bestseller.
Oh boy, that could be a while. That could be some time.
I told you I have no desire for that. This is about a nice leave behind for my clients. So.
Well, it's going to be a great leave behind, but it's really I really think that it's a great talking point, and it's a fresh take.
I love it, man. Like I'm honest to God, I'm not like blowing our own horns here, but it's, to your point, it's coming together. Like it's God, yeah, like the millennials are the leadership wake-up call, and it's for everybody, not just for millennials.
Oh, I love it.
I love it.
Yeah. Okay, well, listen, this will be a short conversation. You've got your homework.
Yeah.
And do you want to say get together again next week?
Yeah, I'll send you the invite for the same time, same place next week, and I will get you my my written homework before that meeting, if that's okay.
Good. Then we'll go over that stuff. We'll amplify that, And then we'll probably look at the next week. We'll look at specifics of your approach that speak directly to it, which is really kind of all of it. So
Yeah.
we'll probably we'll have to sort of go over everything you do again.
Yes.
With the angle towards this.
Yeah,
You know
it reframes it, which is great.
Yeah.
But I do want to go back because I want to do the leaf behind in the book about the anchors, the leadership anchors.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Which, of course, again, just nails it.
Yeah.
Nails it.
I love it because really, at the end of the day, it's all about communication. Like everything in my anchor is about meeting with your people consistently, asking open-ended questions, determining their gaps, and helping them understand them so they can either close them themselves or you can help them close them and get there. Like, and that's the conversation that's not happening in the majority of our organizations on a regular basis. Like it's like, holy shit, like just all came together.
And even the onboarding stuff, Mark, you know, one of the things I looked is they want to be onboarded. They don't want just to walk in and have one of the quotes I said, they want it to be a little bit like a birthday party. They want you to come in. It is a big deal. You're on board. There are protocols. There are procedures. There are things you want to talk about. There are philosophies of business you talk about. I mean, it's not just, hi, here's your desk.
Yeah, and I had, like, on my little podcast, I had CJ Tremblay on, who worked at MLSE when we were there.
I love CJ. She's great. What's she doing?
She's now a manager for Paragon Testing for marketing, and she's in Vancouver right now. So they do like all the, I think it's called IELP, or it's the International Education Program, where like if you're an international student, you got to pass this testing to go into studies internationally. And she's managing all that from marketing and business development perspective for this firm out in Vancouver. But I had her on because I've shifted my leadership podcast from leaders I've worked for to people I supported who are now growing their leadership careers.
Nice.
And what I asked her was, back to the reason I brought her up, I said, so how do you, like, so I said, tell me about your philosophy around leading people, right? And she goes, well, I need to find out how they want to be led. And I asked her very simply, well, how do you figure that out? And she's like, well, I asked them. Well, duh, right? Like, but the reality is most leaders don't ask that friggin' question in the onboarding. Like, I don't call my connection meeting as part of the onboarding, but I do want it done within 90 days. It's one of those 5 anchors that I told you about. But the first question before I have a one-on-one or anything is like, what does a good boss look like to you? How do I get the most out of you? How do you get the most out of me? What does the communication style need to look like? Tell me about your, and it was just like, the reason, again, like, it's just simplicity. Like, it's hitting me now, right? Because when I read these books, I go, okay, there's a pretty simple 4 or 5 messages in that book, but it took 200 pages to get through it. And that's what we keep going back to, right? It's the friggin' conversation and the regularity of it, and it being open-ended versus close-ended, and it being supportive in nature. Like,
so one of the things we need to talk about is attaching numbers to, like, a lot of posts do well when they have 10 principles, the 5 sigma 5, whatever they are. I don't know if you like the number format. The good thing about the number format is it allows us, well, it's just a basic framework for the book, and people can read one. So I as you saw with the Foxcroft book, I did the 40 ways of the fox, whatever. So maybe you want to think about, if you want to do 10 numbers or 10 principles, put that on the back burner. The other thing is I certainly would like a list of people that I could call and talk this kind of stuff about. Just people that you know, maybe you can make an introduction. And I just would like some little case studies from someone other than you, just some other voices other than you, just little sidebars, just little 200-word sidebars to give the book a little bit more depth. That sound all right?
Are you calling me shallow?
Well, I am, but not so many words. So
yeah, I get it.
Take a list. Yeah, a list. So now what am I asking you for? I got to take another note. So I'm asking for 10 people. I
wrote it all down. How about I read it back to you?
Yeah, please.
See, now you're experiencing my one-on-one sessions live here on the phone.
Nice.
So you started off by saying, hey, Mark, I want to get a feeling of, like, if you were 25, people would have just said to you, oh, he's just being the millennial. And how would I have behaved if I was 25?
Yes.
You wanted 5 examples in 5 scenarios of like where I felt like a millennial and where I would have felt let down like a millennial.
Right.
And how to kind of, we'll talk about, I guess, in the anchors, how to solve that problem.
Right.
I will put together my list of numbers, whether that's, you know, my 5 leadership anchors or my 10 leadership principles. I am going to tell you right away, I absolutely want the crux to be the 5 leadership anchors because they're so simple. They're so simplistic. The whole book, that's what drives me nuts. The problem is they're simplistic and like, oh, those are the 5 things I have to do, and I'll have good relationships and I'll be able to lead people. Yeah, but it's the behaviors that lie within them and the consistency in learning those behaviors that comes dressed as work. But I want those 5 leadership anchors in there for sure. And then yeah, maybe I'll think about, you know, some number around just my philosophies, because in those leadership anchors, my problem is like I really like inquiry versus advocacy. But Daniel Goleman brought it up. I didn't. It's not my thing, right? But it's everything I do. And so, you know, can we put that in the book and reference another author who came up with a concept and just that I use it?
Well, sure. There's no reason why you can't. If you credit him and say, you're not quoting him, says, like, Daniel Goleman wrote a great book about this where he said that. That's it.
Yeah, because inquiry versus advocacy is everything to me, whether it's leadership, sales, relationships, you name it. It's that ability to listen and then provide support or a solution based on those custom needs, whether that's an employee, a customer, whatever that looks like. You know, so I've got that. I've got paraphrasing. Like there's some very critical behaviors that lie in those leadership anchors that maybe they're the 10 key behaviors, the 10 leadership behaviors.
It's perfect. But remember, it's, and we have to constantly reinforce this. We're not writing a book about the feeding and caring of millennials. We're writing a book as to where they're pushing us and how we get there.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I got it. Okay. All right. So I have some work to do. Thanks, man.
Hey, this is great. This is another fun one.
How am I paying you when I have work to do?
This speaks to my incredible caginess. This is how I've worked my way to my lush, plush retirement.
You're so smart, Mike Ulmer.
I don't hear that often.
You and me both, brother.
All right, listen, I'll talk to you next week and get to work, God damn it.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, I'll put some time in the calendar this week to get all that on paper and send it your way.
I can't wait to see it. I'm so excited, Mark. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm feeling good about where we're getting. I am not a writer. Keep that in mind. So I'm waiting. Okay. I'm expecting you to do your magic.
Yep, that's the deal. You're not paying me to look good. It's everything you're writing for me. Is gonna look a little different on the page.
Hey man, if I'm paying you to look good, I want a discount from our original rates.
Man, stop it now. Stop it now.
Thanks, right, Mike. This is awesome.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Cheers.
Bye.
He's good.